Galaxy Quest beats Star Trek. The whole setup is a washed-up science fiction TV cast mistaken for real spacefarers by a gentle alien race that intercepted their old episodes and took them for genuine historical documents. Galaxy Quest, released in 1999 and directed by Dean Parasot, is an open parody of Star Trek and its convention fandom, right down to the has-been actors signing autographs and the fans who know the technobabble better than the writers do. The aliens, the Thermians, have built a fully working starship from the show's set designs, because a species that can't lie also can't imagine fiction. Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell, and Daryl Mitchell play the stranded cast, and Rickman's character is the sharpest joke of all, a classically trained actor humiliated by decades trapped in a rubber alien mask. That is the exact indignity real Star Trek actors have described about their own careers, and the film knows it. Made for around $45 million, it earned roughly $90 million worldwide, about $71 million of that in North America. A modest hit by the numbers, but the number that matters came later. Director J.J. Abrams, who would go on to run both the Star Trek and Star Wars film franchises, has repeatedly named it one of his favorite things the genre ever produced. He isn't alone. The film turns up on countless lists of the best Star Trek stories, despite not officially being one. The parody understood why people love Star Trek better than several of the official movies did. Here's where it gets weird. At a 2013 Star Trek convention poll, the fans ranked Galaxy Quest the 7th best Star Trek film ever made, placing a Tim Allen comedy ahead of several of the real ones. Spaceballs trolled George Lucas. George Lucas gave Mel Brooks permission to parody Star Wars on a single written condition: that Brooks sell no Spaceballs merchandise, because Lucas feared parody action figures of John Candy and Rick Moranis would confuse the buyers of his own toy empire. The movie itself takes aim mainly at Star Wars, with side jabs at Star Trek, Alien, and Planet of the Apes. Brooks agreed to the letter of that deal in 1987. Then he found the loophole. He had promised not to sell merchandise. He had never promised to stop mocking it. So he wrote the scene where the wise little guru Yogurt, played by Brooks himself, breaks off the plot to explain how the movie really makes its money, rattling off Spaceballs, the t-shirt, the coloring book, the lunchbox, the breakfast cereal, and the flamethrower. The gag aims straight at the merchandising machine that Star Wars itself had pioneered, which means Lucas's own restriction became the target of the joke. RoboCop mocked the Boardroom. Between the shootouts, Verhoeven spliced in gleeful fake commercials and grinning newscasts about nuclear brinkmanship, so a running satire of Reagan-era America played non-stop underneath the action. RoboCop, from 1987, written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner, points its real contempt not at the street criminals, but at Omni Consumer Products, a privatized megacorporation that owns the police force and treats a dead human officer as a product line. The fake ads, a cheerful family board game about nuclear war, luxury cars, cynical hospital pitches, satirize a culture numbing itself with consumption. The malfunctioning corporate war robot, ED-209, is a direct gag about boardroom hardware built to impress executives rather than actually work. Verhoeven has said he approached America like an anthropologist, adding satirical detail right up to the final days of shooting. The satire isn't decoration, it's the spine of the whole film. It's smarter than every disposable action title it shared a video store shelf with. It was never just action. The most violent movie of its year was secretly the one arguing against selling violence as a product. Mars Attacks skewered the 50s. Burton adapted a lurid 1962 Topps trading card set into a star-stuffed spoof that opened 6 months after Independence Day, aimed squarely at the alien invasion craze that Blockbuster had just revived. Mars Attacks, released in December 1996 and directed by Tim Burton from a screenplay by Jonathan Gems, is a double parody, a campy throwback to the paranoid 1950s Invasion B movie, and a jab at the modern blockbuster that Independence Day had made trendy again that same summer. It packs an all-star cast into the frame just to watch them behave absurdly, with Jack Nicholson turning up in 2 roles at once, and its Martians gleefully betray every "we come in peace" convention the earnest invasion film ever relied on. It opened to divisive reviews and weak box office,
overshadowed by the very spectacle it was mocking. Then, time did its work. It got reappraised as one of Burton's most distinctive films, and a cult favorite for exactly that satirical streak. It flopped against the invasion craze it was making fun of, and then it became the invasion movie people keep going back to. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I make videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would genuinely help the channel out. Thanks.
Dark Star birthed Alien. It started as a 45-minute University of Southern California student film by two unknowns named John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon, built as a shaggy, deadpan answer to the cosmic solemnity of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Made in 1974 and expanded from that project into a threadbare feature, Dark Star is an open parody of Kubrick, following bored astronauts, a talking artificial intelligence ship, and long philosophical arguments with a sentient bomb that mirror the crew's chats with the computer in the film it's mocking. The ship's alien mascot is an inflated beach ball with clawed feet, played entirely for laughs. O'Bannon did the effects, the editing, the co-writing, and acted in it too. And then he took one idea out of this goofy little movie, an alien loose aboard a spacecraft, stripped out every joke, and expanded it into the screenplay for Alien in 1979. That became one of the most influential horror and science fiction franchises ever made. This is the rare case where a parody didn't just outsmart its target, it outproduced it. It began as a joke. The clawed beach ball, staged for laughs in a student film, mutated 5 years later into the creature that redefined how science fiction does dread. Paul nailed the E.T. formula. Steven Spielberg himself recorded a voice cameo for it, taking phone advice from the crude little alien about a movie idea involving a creature with healing powers. Paul, from 2011, directed by Greg Mottola and written by its stars Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, with Seth Rogen voicing the alien, is a road trip parody of Spielberg's own Alien pictures and of science fiction fandom itself. It opens at Comic-Con, then rolls out into an RV tour of America's UFO landmarks, stuffing the margins with affectionate genre references. It's the kind of movie made by fans, for fans, and it never once sneers at the thing it's parodying. The Spielberg cameo is the masterstroke, because it hands the director his own most famous idea, and makes the target of the parody complicit in it. Spielberg played along. The filmmaker being mocked phoned in a cameo just to give the alien mocking him the pitch for one of the biggest movies of his life. Men in Black made aliens cool. It took the tinfoil hat world of alien conspiracy theorists and reframed it as a bored government bureaucracy quietly babysitting 1,500 aliens living in disguise around Manhattan. Men in Black, released in July 1997, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld and written by Ed Solomon, comes from Lowell Cunningham's comic, which was itself rooted in real UFO conspiracy lore. Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith play agents K and J, and the film spoofs the whole paranoid subculture by turning the Men in Black of UFO legend into deadpan civil servants drowning in cosmic paperwork, a bit big enough to spin off a whole franchise of sequels and an animated series. Where the old paranoid films treated an alien cover-up as terrifying, this one treats it as a day job, and that single reframe turned fringe anxiety into the coolest blockbuster of the summer. Paranoia never looked so slick. Made for about $90 million, mocking conspiracy theorists as glorified pest control cleared close to $600 million on the first film alone. They Live exposed the ads. John Carpenter called it a primal scream against Reaganism, hidden inside a wrestler-led B-movie about a single pair of sunglasses. In They Live, from 1988, starring the professional wrestler Roddy Piper, a drifter finds sunglasses that strip away the surface of advertising and media to reveal the commands underneath: obey, consume, marry, and reproduce. The premise quietly inverts the invasion paranoia film because the aliens are already here, embedded as the wealthy ruling class, and nobody noticed. Carpenter wrote it openly as a protest against 1980s consumerism. The glasses show everything. That throwaway obey gag outlived the movie to become one of the most recognizable protest images in the world. Wright rewrote Body Snatchers. Edgar Wright closed his Cornetto trilogy after a zombie spoof and a buddy cop spoof with an alien invasion spoof disguised as a group of middle-aged men attempting a small-town pub crawl. The World's End, from 2013, co-written by Wright and Simon Pegg and starring Pegg and Nick Frost, is the third and final film after Shaun of the Dead took on zombie movies and Hot Fuzz took on action movies. This time the target is the alien invasion and body snatcher film, and the friends slowly realize their hometown has been quietly replaced. The town was gone. It's a direct descendant of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but Wright builds it as a reunion drama about arrested adolescence and the pressure to conform. Wright has said he never once considered softening the story's grim tone. The spoof had more on its mind than the films it was riffing on. The comedy that started as a pub crawl gag turned the Body Snatcher movie into a real argument about refusing to grow up. Innerspace redid Fantastic Voyage. Joe Dante took the submarine through the bloodstream premise of 1966's Fantastic Voyage, played it as pure screwball comedy, and then walked off with the Academy Award the serious original never got. Innerspace, from 1987, stars Dennis Quaid, Martin Short, and Meg Ryan, and it's an open comedic reworking of that earnest miniaturization drama, except here the miniaturized test pilot gets accidentally injected into a hypochondriac supermarket clerk instead of a lab rabbit. The team at Industrial Light and Magic won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects for it, the only Academy Award any Joe Dante film has ever won. The comedy won. The goofball version of the premise walked away with the exact prize its solemn source material was never given. Demolition Man called the future. Its future is a sanitized California where every restaurant is a Taco Bell. Swearing triggers an automatic fine printed on the spot, and nobody will explain what the 3 seashells in every bathroom are for. Demolition Man, from 1993, starring Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and Sandra Bullock, thaws a cop and a criminal out of a 1990s deep freeze into a conflict-free, hyper-sanitized version of the year 2032. It satirizes 2 things at once: the mindless excess of the 1990s action movie and a smothering, corporate, over-policed future. In its backstory, a thing called the Franchise Wars ended with Taco Bell as the only surviving restaurant chain, reborn as fine dining. Stallone, a face of the exact action genre being mocked, is fully in on the joke. It outthought its own heroes. And its gag that one fast food chain would swallow all the others stopped being absurd the day Taco Bell actually built the movie's restaurant as a real promotion. Sleeper laughed at Utopia. Woody Allen's health food store owner wakes 200 years in the future, where the doctors have concluded that steak, cream pies, and cigarettes are the real secret to a long life. Sleeper, from 1973, co-written with Marshall Brickman, is a slapstick parody of dystopian science fiction, set in a bumbling 2173 police state that can barely run itself. It aims squarely at the solemn futurism of its era, including George Lucas's grim THX 1138, and it keeps flipping 20th century certainties on their head for laughs, running on silent comedy slapstick, malfunctioning robots, and cryogenics. The future disagrees. Its running punchline, that tomorrow's science will reverse everything we currently believe about health, keeps half coming true every time the nutrition advice flips again. Hitchhiker's Guide, Shrank Space Opera. Douglas Adams co-wrote the screenplay before his death in 2001, keeping the joke that Earth gets casually demolished in the first few minutes to make room for an interstellar bypass. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, released in 2005 and directed by Garth Jennings, is built from Adams's own material, and the film is dedicated to him. Martin Freeman, Sam Rockwell, Mos Def, Zooey Deschanel, Bill Nighy, and John Malkovich fill out a universe that treats cosmic wonder as mostly paperwork, with bureaucratic aliens, planet building as a trade, and an answer to the meaning of life that turns out to be nothing more than a number. Adams spent his whole career puncturing the pomposity of grand space opera, and the movie keeps that intact. A vast, indifferent galaxy run by form-filling. It deflated the genre it loved on purpose. The number is 42. That gag about the meaning of life being a single figure outlived its author, and still shapes how comedy writes science fiction. Idiocracy predicted the present. Mike Judge froze an average soldier in a forgotten military experiment and thawed him 5 centuries later into an America too dumb to work out why the crops won't grow when you water them with a sports drink. Idiocracy, from 2006, co-written with Etan Cohen and starring Luke Wilson and Maya Rudolph, satirizes consumerism, anti-intellectualism, and corporate branding through a dumbed-down future set around the year 2505. Judge has said he built it partly as an inversion of 2001: A Space Odyssey, swapping the pristine, advanced future for giant retail warehouses and mountains of trash. 20th Century Fox gave it almost no theatrical release and barely any marketing, and it flopped. And many people believe the studio buried it precisely because it mocked the kind of corporation that owned its distributor, though that motive has never been officially confirmed. Then, its audience slowly reclassified it from embarrassment to prophecy,
and Judge himself has said he should have said it in the present. The studio buried it, the public turned it into the most quoted prediction of an era its own maker now wishes he'd set today. If this was your kind of thing, consider subscribing so you don't miss what goes up next. Thanks for watching.